I am so glad and honored to be able to talk to you today, and we are so happy to have you here, of course. And it seems like your two last films, or one of them upcoming, are really connected to the theme of the festival this year, sin and shame. So I hope we can revolve a lot around that subject today. But I think that maybe we should take some history first, because you have a solid background as a novelist as well as a journalist. And then you moved further to writing scripts. So it would be interesting to hear you talk about this evolution of yours, or not saying that one thing is better than the other, of course, but even though.
First of all, I must say that I must think to my career and ask myself how I became specialist of sin and shame. I didn't, when I was a kid, really think that would be my way. Anyway, I just basically wanted to write, and I've started studying science, politics, and journalists because I had no precise idea of what would be my way. And I was with students earlier, and I think things have changed. But back in the days when I was young, I didn't think it was so easy to picture, even more maybe as a woman, what could be my way as an artist. Like, if you want to be a writer, I mean, in France, you not necessarily know where to start. So journalism was my first house somehow. And while being a journalist, I would use my free time, night and weekends, writing novels. And, I strongly believe that life is all the mistake you made, on all the experiences, and I was led to writing scripts because after my first book, I've been offered to participate to screenplay writing, but also, and again, without any techniques. So it took me a very long time to figure out how you write a film when you actually haven't studied it. And then after a while, writing for others, then you don't want to share anymore. So there were topics that were mine, and I think that is about the right moment to direct. It's whenever you don't want to share.
I see. And did you find it difficult to turn from the language of words to the language of images?
Yeah, I thought it would be easier for me to write screenplays because I became a writer, and it took me a while to realize this is the opposite way of writing. With one, you can travel in a mind for pages and pages and analyze whatever going in the heart and the soul of a person, and then you have to use image, so it's reverse process. And we talked about it with many writers and very good writers. And I'm not even sure it helps to be a writer, to become a good screenplay writer. It only helps to do what exactly you should not do. You don't want to have a voice over all the movie to explain what's going on in the head of the character, except if it's arty and that's your purpose, but that's normally not how you should do it. So it's difficult to change from that process to the opposite.
I can really imagine. And as I understand it, when you were making The Happening, you were in close collaboration with Anna as well. How did this collaboration of yours look when you were discussing the film?
First of all, I'm a big reader of Annie Ernaux's novels, and it's kind of special because she only writes about her own life, but in order to share an experience and in a way that it becomes a common experience. So you actually can project your own experience in her book. And I read that book after having an abortion myself, and I couldn't find a book who would help me think about what I've been through. And I had this idea of maybe writing something about it myself because I couldn't find the book. And on that journey, I met a girl who told me about Happening. So I read the book and I realized the book already exists. But I wasn't trying to find a topic for a movie to be made. Actually, I was making my first movie by that time. And what happened is that in losing it in my first movie, I was asked to pick one book, and the actress has one book in her bag, and you see it very, very briefly in the movie, and I picked Happening. And it stayed in my mind for a while, and then I decided maybe to try to adapt it, and that was a mistake. Because then I was with Annie Arnaud and I realized the only thing that might happen next is that I'm going to betray my favorite writer, which is a very bad idea. And then she makes me more comfortable because I said, I want to adapt Happening. And she said, oh, if you want to, but I have to advise you that it's the only one of my books that no journalist would write about. So it's a failure. I was like, okay. But it was also interesting, like, why is it a failure? Because in the beginning of 2000, no journalist would speak about abortion, even in France. So I was up to try, and she helped me. The first thing she did is that she went through all the book with me. And she has a memory. I mean, I don't remember what I've done 2 days ago. And when I ask her about 1963, she's like, yeah, that day I remember. And she always say, like, if I can't exactly answer, I won't tell you, okay? So I'm only giving you the exact answer. And I'm like, oh my God, I would never be able to do that. And something was really, I was struck by something, is that when we get back to the moment when she's giving an abortion, the pain she felt like ages ago, 50 years ago, was so intense, and the shame as well, that she started crying. I could see tears in her eyes, which makes me very unsettled. You know, I wanted to run away, but we were in a very, house near nothing, so I couldn't run away. And so I did the movie. But she also participated. Like she told me from the beginning, I will never try to have the screenplay look like the book, but I will tell you if things are not right regarding to that times, the way we thought about things, the way we talk. And I asked her if I was allowed to put some of my experience in it, because, for instance, like I needed one sequence. Oh my God, I'm gonna say something too personal, but it's too late. Okay, I needed one sequence where girls talks about pleasure, and I wanted one of the girls to show the other how to masturbate on a pillow. I must add that I was the girl watching the girl masturbating on a pillow. But I used this part of my experience, and Annie said, yeah, that sounds right. I mean, I haven't went through that moment, but it could have happened. So it was a nice collaboration, because I felt free to use my own experience, and I was sure that she would actually help me find the right path and not betray her book or what happened back then. And at the end, when I showed her the movie, I was very scared, of course. I wasn't in the screening room. I jumped in at the very end. And she said, after a silence, it seems right. Okay, I was relieved. And then she said, but Audrey, there's a problem. I was less relieved, and I said, what? And she said, I don't think we have Tupperware in 63. And I was like, if this is the only problem, I'm going to write in the press kit. Like, everything was perfect except for the Tupperware. But it was, collaborating with her was nice. And honestly, when I won the Golden Lion, considering what she told me about her own experience, like, it was painful. It took her like 40 years to decide to write the book, and when it's out, nobody cares about it. So I had the feeling that the movie process healed something about her story.
Yeah. And also it's kind of ironic, or how one should express it, that the topic of the film also gained a new, very current and the acute relevance while you were...
It's crazy because when I started working on it, I would have the same answer from the industry all the time. Like, why would you like to make a movie about abortion? You have the law. I was like, oh, interesting. Why don't you say the same sentence to the next filmmaker who's going to be in that room and say, I want to make a movie about World War II because I guess it's over, right? But then you realize that behind this, it means something. I mean, there are topics that are not supposed to be discussed in a way. So that was really hard. And then we managed miraculously to find the money. We were this close not to make it. And then things are changing in United States, and then people are now conscious, and they tell me, oh, you did it on purpose, right? Because you knew there's problem. And I like, yeah, I know there's problem because many countries in the whole world don't allow abortion. So I'm not waiting for United States to reverse Roe versus Wade to actually be interested in that topic. But again, it means that we are suspected to try to say something. It's not natural to make movies, still not natural to make movies on that kind of topic. I think it's changing now, but those are still the territories we're not supposed to freely explore, I guess.
And in the film, for you who haven't seen it yet, you really get into the world of Annie, the main character, and you use a different format than we are used to create this sensation that you are really in this kind of claustrophobical world. Almost all of the film, you are like in the behind the shoulder of Annie, really getting into her personality, and also the almost thriller-like sense that this time issue creates, because time is really an issue. So can you tell me about this form of the film?
There are many reasons for me to use this frame, but I remember that one of them was that when you have a square frame, something like that, you don't see people coming from the sides, right? So the more we jump into the film and her story, the more she gets paranoid, because everybody can actually say this girl is trying to get an abortion, and then she ends up in jail. So when I use that frame, people appears on screen, so you don't see them coming. So you are in the same level of tension as she is. So it helps me explaining that's mindset. And also we discussed it with my DOP. I wanted to give the feeling that it's a more open frame at the beginning, like she's surrounded by other girls. And the more we go through her way, the more she's walking to the unknown, the more I would be on her back. So we are her opening doors, not knowing what's going to happen the other side of the door.
It's really efficient. But I was also thinking about Annie Ernaux and her way of including film in her language, in her books, apart from happening also in The Years, Les Années, where she uses the experience of her own life, but also the experience from films, images that are really a part of her biography. So I was thinking about if this was something that you were discussing as well, the part of classical films or that kind of images.
Yes, I mean, we talked precisely about, I only know the title in French, but you'll recognize, Le cuirassé Potemkin. Potemkin? Can somebody help me? The English title of Potemkin? Huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pansarkryssaren in Swedish.
This one. So in the book, it plays a very important part because she lives surrounded by the other students. And once, in 2 weeks, they would change the cafeteria in a screening room. And she's in the middle of the others, and she doesn't want some of the girls to learn she's pregnant. And they're showing Potemkin, whatever. And this moment when the people, the crowd of the ship are supposed to eat rotten meat. And you can see the captain is looking carefully, and the meat is rotten. And she's about to be sick. And the movie has an impact on her unconscious, and it's really strong. And she doesn't want to be sick in front of the other, and she can't move anymore. And I have one regret with that movie, that I shoot that sequence, and I loved how it worked, how her and the image work together. But sometimes you have to be very radical. So you make a movie and you can try everywhere that sequence doesn't fit, so you have to get rid of it, no matter. So that's it's somewhere, but it's not in the movie anymore.
I mean, somehow it's still there with you and with us now. So we can imagine it somehow. But I was also thinking about a comparison to Summer with Monica and the issue of choosing one's sexuality before, for instance, motherhood, which is, of course, symbolized by the gaze of Monica into the camera by the ending, when she has actually left her husband and little child in order to go out to have fun. In Happening, it's about choosing your life before family, to actually, the stubbornness that she expresses is somehow so not shocking, but it's so rather compelling. I mean, it really strikes you when you see the film that you can't really judge her for doing that because she's so persistent. And did you get many reactions? Because I know that still when you show Summer with Monica, it causes some uproar, even with younger people, that he makes this decision, not choosing family. So
But I think it's very interesting. It's even more brave to tell the story of a girl who wants to have fun because nobody can accept that idea. So, women and freedom. I mean, there is many questions about shame, women, and freedom. Like every time you talk about freedom for women, you will end up talking about shame, and that's very interesting. I mean, of course, it's easier to tell the story of a girl who actually wants to make some studies. Okay, so this is something we will understand today. But no, not pleasure, right? Not fun, not pleasure. But she's also trying to get some pleasure in the movie. Anna Maria Bartolome played that. And to me, it was very important because if you want to explore that idea of shame and freedom, you have to also go that way. And yes, of course, there are reactions. I met so many people touring with the movie, and some of them were against abortion, obviously. But it was interesting because we would make it possible to discuss. I mean, if it's pros against cons, then it's done. Then we can't speak. But if you ask someone like, oh, okay, you're against, right? And then you discuss the level of pain a girl should accept or a man should accept for a girl, that becomes a discussion, and that also the purpose of movies or art in general, I guess.
And choosing the perspective, as you did, has made many people talk about the kind of female gaze. Would you say that was your ambition to create a notion of female experience, or?
Yes, of course. I mean, I will reverse the question. Do a filmmaker intend, when he is a man, to create a male experience? I think you create the experience related to your identity. So, yeah, probably as being a woman, it kind of offer a female experience. But then I have a problem with the word female gaze, because at the beginning I was so happy to hear it. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm considered as a woman filmmaker, as a female filmmaker. And then step by step I hear that again. So your female gaze. And I realize they have built for me a new jail. I haven't made a movie. I made a female gaze experience. Nice. And so now that it's been used to reduce my gaze. And my gaze is what? My gaze is my experience, the movies I've loved, my culture, my gender. But you can't reduce my gaze to my gender, right? Or it would mean every female director will make the same movie on the same topic, which is completely stupid, right? So we have to be careful with the words, because even the words that are supposed to help us understand the world better can be used in a way that reduces all the ideas we are fighting for. So it's a bit annoying.
Yeah, I can understand that. But also, I mean, it's a reaction to the idea of the male gaze that I guess we started to talk about in order to just put it on the agenda to make an awareness of the idea of an universal male gaze somehow.
If we are against, it also reduces the gaze at its worst definition. I mean, we know beautiful male gaze. Okay, and now when we say male gaze, all we hear is like dirty old guy trying to see the boobs of an actress. This is not male gaze. Or we have a problem with male. So of course we need to rethink our industry for real, and we know that. And of course we have to explore different gaze, and to share ideas and to evolve. But I mean, if it's female versus male and it's a battle, this is not going to be fun. So we actually have to rethink me as female. And I say, even on a set, even the way I use power on a set, when we say we have to think again about ourselves, we have to do it for real. And it's not only male against female. Like, what about inclusion? Like, we have many topics and we are pretty aware of what we should do to make our world be more open, smarter, and interesting, but we all have work. And then to talk about Emmanuel, when I decided to work on a topic that talks about sexuality, the undermined thing, something that I had in mind is there a place for us to still meet, like people, male, female, everybody? Is there a way to build bridge, and can we still have conversation, and excitement would come from that conversation, and we would all be allowed to show vulnerability, and to talk about that vulnerability. So, I mean, everything we've been throughout the last years was a blessing, and we need that, and we need the Me Too movement, and we need the new words, but we don't need to make it be only a war. I mean, I am fully against the idea that the only thing we're going to gain out of it is a war between gender. Now we need to think together, actually. I guess that's my... and now you can shout if you don't agree.
But I was also thinking about the issue of pleasure and pain, while I mean, happening is not only about pain that we were talking about earlier, that it's also about having the right to your own pleasure, and although you're about to make an abortion, also to have a future family. But when it comes to the idea of pleasure, I mean, the idea of Emmanuel, which in the Swedish context, I think that many of you perhaps share this idea of it, that is actually based on an idea more than actually seeing it. It's like an idea of some kind of French sensualism. And it was screened, of course, in the cinemas back back in 1975 when it opened in Sweden. I mean, and in a French context, of course, it went for 13 years, as I understand it, on the cinemas at Champs-Élysées.
On one theater, but I would like to make a try. Who knows? Please raise your hands. Who knows about Emmanuel? Okay, who actually seen it? Okay, half, maybe less. So that's very interesting, and that was something that inspires me. I mean, it's very interesting to work on an image and nobody exactly remember what it is. Then you can start, you can start using it as a clay and playing with it, because nobody clearly remember, which actually is good because I've seen the film quite lately and it's bad. So I'm happy not too many people. So it's maybe they would come and see mine, maybe.
But I also heard some rumors about Bergman inspiring you for this project.
Rumors that I spread myself. So people say. No, honestly, that this is. I don't. Okay, I said it before, and then I start speaking about Emmanuel because I'm into it. I don't think it's good to speak too much about a movie you haven't met yet. But the only last thing that I can say about it is that when I started writing this screenplay, usually I rewatch films that are inspiring me. And in Scene of a Marriage, it's crazy because I actually live in Demba, near the real house. There is one sentence a woman says, talking about a relationship to reality. She says, "My experience was dry." And I kept that in mind, like, what is it to have a dry experience of the world? So where is your pleasure? Because when you use pleasure as an idea, it doesn't have to be sexual. Like, pleasure is the purpose of all the capitalistic society. So how is it used and what you want to do with that idea? So my experience was dry, was the beginning of me thinking about Emmanuel.
But when it comes to images of sensuality, what is your experience of Ingmar Bergman's films? When you look upon the specific matter of sensuality?
What strikes me the most, but it's my personal relationship to his cinema, are the words. Like the way, like what I would call brutal honesty. We talked about it. Brutal honesty is something that, first of all, I always ask myself, is it related to Swedish culture? Because I think there is something like this culturally in your DNA, like say things, confront, and then figure out what can be alive when things are said. And I think the body goes with this idea of being there and being able to say, and then, of course, when you say things, then they exist, So the strong reality in his movies, for me, starts with the words.
Yes, you are actually making me think of the scene in Persona, where the two women are just talking about.
One is more talkative than the other, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, one is actually only listening. But still, the words create the scene in your head.
But it's words, and the one who listens is as important as the one who talks. So, yes, of course, and it's a relationship created through silence by words. So, yes.
Because I was thinking about a quote that I read from you, reading.
Somebody said.
Somebody said that you said, but that eroticism is based on what we show, as much on what we show as on what we hide. This is where the excitement comes from.
Yeah, but actually, it doesn't only work for erotism, and that's something I learned through my experience with Happening, because when I shoot one sequence, I don't know if people haven't seen the movie. and are going to see it today, but I'm going to spoil it. So at one moment, she's trying to get an abortion to herself with a needle. And yeah, and then nobody's going to watch it, and I understand. But I don't film that. You see the needle, you see her vagina, and then I go to her face, and you only see her face. The only thing is that you will hear the sound of the needle progressing on the ground. And I met people who actually told me that they saw the needle in her body. And I was like, oh no, you didn't. Yeah, I saw it. And for them, it was crystal clear that it was in the movie. This is the power of imagination. And I think it's brilliant. Because if you're lazy, you do half of the work and the audience did the other half. It's better. And also because, no joking, it's collaborative. So you're not half sleepy in front of the screen, and then we create the story together. So, and then you don't have to be provocative to give sensations to people. I think it's easy to be provocative. Like you have a camera, you shoot everything, then provocation. People shout, nothing's happened, end of the game. I prefer to try to find where we can actually make that movie together, the person who makes the movie and the audience. I think it's more interesting.
We were listening earlier today during the Bergman week to a couple of intimacy coordinators and being on the verge of filming. How is your relationship to that kind of assistance, so to speak, during the process?
I think some people need it. I really don't think I do, and I hope I'm not wrong about that. But actually, if the body is the topic of the movie, I cannot give it to somebody else. That makes no sense to me. The only thing that I am sure about is that the first scene sequence I've filmed in my life, I felt it like big time for a reason that I now understand. So they didn't feel bad, but I wasn't enough prepared, and I made many mistakes. The first mistake you can make as a filmmaker when talking about sex is very easy. This is the only kind of situation where writers don't write. So, give you an example. Normally, if you write a dinner, you're a writer, you will explain what's going on during the dinner, right? You don't just write, they are having dinner, dot. Besides, they are having sex, dot, happens in screenplay. So you have to know that if you've done that mistake, being on set is going to be painful because you can't ask the actors, and now you have sex. Because you're asking them to use their experience in order to tell something you don't even understand yourself. So sex goes with a dramaturgy. Something is going on and you can tell it through the bodies, through the words, whatever. But this is a situation, dramaturgically speaking. Something is going on and you have to exactly point at it. And then you try with your actors to enlighten that through the sequence. And if you do so, nobody felt bad, you know. So you can talk about the purpose of the sequence before and try to imagine how you're going to get there, as you would do with every other sequence. At least when I tried that, it was fine. Opposite to in my first movie, and then the other horrible moment I remember, like one actress is my friend, dear friend, and the guy is an actor, like well-known actor in France. And she's lying on the bed, not exactly naked because she has prostheses, and I think it's important for her to feel free. And he is supposed to kiss her from the toes to the head because he had done bad things and she's still there and he wants to say thank you. So I think that I'm prepared and I am not. So she's lying and Pio, the actor, says, so where do I kiss her? I'm like, from the toe to the head. No. Where do I kiss her? And as I am not prepared and I have my friend lying naked, I am not able to say like, there and there and there, and I'm shaking, and I'm like, we'll do it quickly and move on. And of course, that wasn't good, surprisingly. And then I learned that I was making people uncomfortable. I was not nice to my actors because I am supposed to lead them, and it has to be a purpose that we are actually trying to enlighten together. So if I don't want to put them at risk, then I have to know precisely what we're doing. And so they can rely on me and say everything is fine. And that's actually the other experience I had was happening. You know, this is a girl who actually can allow herself, I want pleasure, to say I want pleasure. And so she was in front of the actor, and they know that's what we're trying to say. So she's shy and is more, you know, easy, and then she reversed the sequence, and that was the purpose. So it was easy to say we're working on that idea, and everybody felt comfortable, actually.
Yes, but wouldn't it just be possible to imagine a situation where this aid would be relieving for all parts?
I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody. I know myself, I know what I can and can't do, and then I want to hear the actors myself. And if something is wrong, for instance, so I wrote something that makes the actors of the movie, which mean the world to me, uncomfortable. I don't want anybody between me and them. I need to hear it in order to change something if I am wrong, right? So it's not, I don't know how to say cascade. Sorry? Stunt? Okay. It's not something you can rehearse mechanically, because what we're trying to make happen is life. So it cannot be mechanic. So I don't agree with the idea that you will put your hand here and you will do that. So I don't want them to feel bad, but I don't want something mechanical in a way. So we have to be aware that all those situations existed in the past. We have to find a way to avoid it. I talked with intimacy coordinator to find my own questions, and then I intend to find my own answers.
Do you use subtext more than actual when you are writing these scenes, for instance? Do you write them very in detail, or yeah?
You know what? It goes with the same idea of dramaturgy. You have to be as precise as if you're writing a dinner. Like this is about your shame. Then, if you avoid it, this is you being unsettled. And if you are unsettled, how do you expect the actor's going to be? So if you don't feel comfortable writing that, then don't do it. You don't have to. And if you do it, it's because you need to tell something through that situation and you know how to do it.
I was thinking also about your writing. You have 2 upcoming projects as a scriptwriter as well.
Yeah, I love to write for others, and I dearly hope that I wrote a movie for a filmmaker that I love, and her name is Valérie Donzelli, and we adapt a book again called L'amour et les forêts. In English, it sounds weird, but it's Love and Forest, and it's about a toxic relationship, and it's on screen. It's in theater in France right now, and it works quite well, and I really think she did a great job, so I hope that someday it's going to be in Sweden. And I also wrote another movie for a very good filmmaker called Teddy Lucie Modeste about school in France nowadays. And the last one that is in shooting right now, it's going to be like the huge French film. I really want to see how it's going to be, because the producers keep saying, you can write more, you can write more. And first time they start trying to figure out how long it's going to be the movie. And it was 4 hours and a half. So it's going to be fun, but half a day. And I'm not sure no one is ready for half a day. So except if it's Fanny and Alexander, of course. And it won't be because it's a comedy, obviously. So that's it.
Are you working together with other scriptwriters in these projects as well?
Yeah, I love to collaborate. For my project, for Emmanuel, I worked with Rebecca Zlotowski, which is a filmmaker, and I love to also collaborate on my movies with other filmmakers, and I have one writer that I love to work with, and even if I collaborate with someone else, she will read and give me advices, and her name is Marcia Romano. But I think we were stronger when we exchange ideas, and we're a group of filmmakers. And the first one who is ready will ask the others to read the drafts, and we do it all the time for each other's.
Yeah, Anna Maria Bartolomei, was she also a part of the writing process? Was she able to influence the?
Hard to answer because writing process on screen is always, and I mean, she literally was the movie. There is not 1 second without her, and she would, I mean, everything would be defined through our movement and where she looks, and it was a very strange process because, okay, she walked in a room, and her and, for instance, the focus guys, they have to work together because each time she turns her face, if she's looking at the camera here, the focus needs to go to the camera the second she turns her head. And if she's not exactly interested, the focus will be slow. But if she's really interested, like, wow, there's a camera, she will turn her head and he has to do the focus that way. So the focus is in her mind. So the cinematographer was in her back like a shadow. The focus person was what she has in mind. The sound goes the same way. I mean, the crew has to work together on every sequence because I don't cut much. I would follow her most of the time. So it only works if all the crew manage to make it together at the same moment. So every shot is a little miracle in a way.
I can only agree. So, do we have any questions from the audience? Yes.
And one on the set, do you work a lot with improvisation, like for the happening? Because it sounds so specific with the camera. So, is there any space for the actors to change something or come up with something?
This one wasn't the right movie. We did change things from the screenplay on set, but rehearsing in the morning. So in the morning we would rehearse all, not the acting, because I believe that if you rehearse the acting, you're going to dry something. And then it's done and you will never find what you're desperately seeking for. But the moves, the way she would go from one place to the other, and also how people appears on screen, at what moment. But the thing we changed before we start shooting. And you know, there are like very long shots. It's very funny because in the middle of the movie, spoiler again, there is a shot that lasts for 7.5 minutes. And when we did it, we were like, oh, everybody's going to mention that. Turns out that we were absolutely wrong, because when it's good, people don't see, it has to seem effortless. So it's good when nobody will see that you put so much effort on making that shot. I tell you this so you can tell me after the movie, yeah, I saw the shot and it was nice. So finally somebody tells me, good for my ego. But no, I mean, I hope in the future to give myself more freedom, because I work with very highly skilled actors, and most of my work is being hand in hand with actors. That's what I like about my job, and I, for instance, really trust the one I'm going to work with. So I want to give more space. As long as we have defined the meaning together, I would like to open myself to it, but it wasn't possible with happening because of the filming system.
Seeing the film, The Happening, I was very touched by the filming of bodies. You are very close. It's I felt it really physical, organic, and I'd like to hear your own words about it.
Thank you. I think I used my experience, my gaze. You know about my gaze? So we had very precise questions about, I think it's related to the length of the shot. Because if you are her, which was the idea of the movie, not looking at her but being her, there is a way to look at yourself. So it's not somebody depicting your body, it's you looking at a body you see on a daily basis. So the length of the sequence, this is something that changes. Of course, there is the axis, but it's also, even if I'm there filming from there, if I don't stay too long, I can pretend that's you looking at yourself. And we had that conversation because I really didn't want the film to be provocative because, once again, I think it's easy. But at one moment, spoiler alert, she is having an abortion, and I was like, okay, if it was me, I know that I would not want to look, but I would still look. So what is the exact length of that sequence? Sorry, bee attack. And as I don't cut, as I don't have many axes, I have to find the right length of the sequence on set. So we did many shots until we decided with the whole crew, because we were all in front of the monitor, that it sounds like the real, like she looks down, she has a glimpse, come back to her, and it seems to be right. That's right, and then you can move on to something. And then also, it's not that easy to create scenes that you have never experienced and hopefully never will. So about the abortion, you know, my first idea, and the easiest and stupid one, is that you suffer, you shout. And when Anna Maria did it, we were like, both, it doesn't work. And I didn't want it to rehearse, because I think if you want to make those things right, you have to be at risk. So you have to wait till you're shooting, and if it doesn't work, then you have to find a solution. So we were sitting in front of each other, and we were both trying things. So I can look at her, but she can also look at what I'm doing, and we can decide when we think it's right, but both. And I was like, maybe we can try to reverse the process, like breathe as if you were about to faint. So we start doing that, you know, in front of each other, nearly fainting, by the way. And at one point we were like, we do agree that this is the right way to depict that moment. She feels comfortable, and I look at her, I feel it's right. So it's if you want to work through the body, you involve the experience of your own body, and then you search with the actress, I guess.
I think this might be quite a dry question, but I was just curious to hear more about the transition from your screenwriting into sort of the visual representation of the film, and how you work with a DP and develop your visual language, so more on a general level, I guess.
Honestly, I had a strange experience because I never thought I would be a filmmaker. That was not where I would portray myself. I realized quite lately that there were not enough female filmmakers around me for me to even think about it when I was younger. But the minute I arrived on set, for some reason, I'm at home. I know what to do. Maybe it's because I'm a dictator. Maybe, you know, I have a general idea of what would be the best if life was my movie. And then I'm lucky because I know that the DOP I work with, I wrote 7 movies, he was the DOP. So we know each other throughout my experience as a filmmaker, but others, and we would talk about every screenplay. So we know each other like very, very well, and we talk about the same movies, and we exchange movies for ages. So I think it's a very intimate relationship, and it's built on time. And if I have to change one day, I'll be scared, because with him, I had years, before we start working together on a set, we had years speaking about movies. So it's something I can't replicate that way. But yeah, it was like, when I arrived on set, it was some kind of a music I understand. And I really had this revelation, and I was like, oh, I hope it's going to be my whole life, because I really dearly love every second of that experience. And I really try to make it be an interesting experience for everybody. Everybody tried to do his best. And I'm not sure I can replicate what happened with the happening, but every moment everybody was involved, and it was great.
I think it's very beautiful how you talk about it. It makes me think about the character of Happening herself and her relationship to writing.
Noémie Merlan.
To be able to actually write, to create. So, but on that note, I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you
for
to
this
you all.
conversation.
Thank you very much.